4 minutes after takeoff, the world's largest passenger jet began tearing itself apart.
Is coming apart in mid-air.
We're losing an engine.
And the crew had no manual for what came next. "80 system warnings flooded the cockpit at once. Not 2, not 10, 80. A single piece of metal, thinner than 2 sheets of paper, had just put 469 lives at risk. And for nearly 2 hours, the pilots circled above Singapore, trying to answer one terrifying question. Could this aircraft even land safely? Kerry Edwards, former Royal Air Force pilot and human factors expert, once said, "One of the finest examples of airmanship in the history of aviation." Today, we find out exactly what that meant, but to understand just how extraordinary that moment was, we need to go back to where this flight began. It is November 4th, 2010. Qantas Flight QF32 departs Singapore Changi Airport, heading towards Sydney, the final leg of a 22-hour journey from London. On board are 440 passengers and 29 crew members. The aircraft itself is an Airbus A380, the largest commercial airliner ever built, double-decker giant powered by 4 Rolls-Royce Trent 900 engines, supported by hundreds of thousands of sensors and designed to carry more than 500 people across continents. In the cockpit, 5 experienced pilots are present. Captain Richard de Crespigny, veteran with 35 years of experience. Alongside him, First Officer Matt Hicks, Second Officer Mark Johnson, and 2 senior check captains conducting a routine evaluation. Everything is normal, routine, predictable until 1:01 a.m. Just 4 minutes after takeoff, engine number 2 suddenly fails. What happens next will become one of the most studied emergencies in aviation history. So what exactly happened in those first critical seconds? And how did 5 pilots respond to something none of them had ever trained for? Picture this, a fully loaded aircraft climbing smoothly over Southeast Asia. And then suddenly, a thunderous sound rips through the cabin. Passengers near the left wing look out their windows, and what they see is almost impossible to process. A section of the engine is gone. Jagged metal is exposed. Below, on Batam Island in Indonesia, debris begins falling from the sky. Pieces of the engine scatter across the ground, even landing near a school. Inside the cockpit, there is no time to react emotionally. Captain de Crespigny does something critical. He presses the altitude hold button, stabilizing the aircraft, and takes manual control. Because in aviation, there is one rule above all others: aviate first, keep the aircraft flying. Everything else comes later, and then the warnings begin. The aircraft's electronic system starts generating alerts, one after another, then faster still. This is not normal. In training scenarios, pilots might deal with 2 or 3 system failures at once. But on this flight, the system produces more than 80 separate warnings. Think about that for a moment. 80 different problems, all demanding attention, all at the same time. And the situation is even worse than the cockpit display suggests. Shrapnel from the failed engine has sliced through the wing. Fuel lines are damaged, hydraulic systems are compromised, electrical wiring is severed. Out of 22 major onboard systems, 21 are affected. Roll control drops to just 35%. Braking capability falls to 40%. The aircraft is leaking fuel. It is out of balance. And many of its core control systems are no longer functioning as designed. Yet somehow, it is still flying. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, de Crespigny declares a pan alert, signaling urgency while keeping communication channels clear for essential coordination. Inside the cockpit, something remarkable is happening. Instead of chaos, there is structure. Instead of panic, there is teamwork. Captain Richard de Crespigny, pilot in command, once said, "It's vital in a team environment that every person feels psychologically safe to state concerns, or in a critical situation, say stop." And that mindset would prove critical, because this was only the beginning. But that was only part of the story. As the warnings kept mounting, the crew faced a deeper problem. They needed to understand what the aircraft was still capable of before they could even think about bringing it home. Have you ever wondered how pilots assess damage they cannot even see? Inside the cockpit, the crew has data, but data alone is not enough. Passengers seated over the left wing can clearly see a large, jagged hole. Fuel is streaming out. The crew manages to contain an initial fire in the engine, but the risk remains. The wing tanks hold over 100 tons of fuel, and here is where it gets interesting. Unable to visually confirm the damage, Captain de Crespigny sends Second Officer Mark Johnson into the cabin. Johnson walks back, looks out the window, and confirms what the instruments are suggesting. The engine is almost completely gone. The wing has been deeply compromised, and suddenly, all those warnings make sense, because inside the wing are vital systems, hydraulic lines, fuel pumps, control cables, all running through the same structure, and many of them have now been severed. At this point, the crew faces a critical decision. Where do they go? Continuing forward is not an option. The safest choice is to return to Singapore, the nearest major airport. Even that is uncertain. To get back, the aircraft must turn left toward the damaged wing. No one knows how the aircraft will respond, so de Crespigny does something careful and deliberate. He initiates the turn slowly, gradually, watching every response, second by second, and then the aircraft completes the turn. It is still controllable. For the first time since the failure, the crew has a small but crucial piece of good news. But another problem immediately emerges. The aircraft is too heavy to land. It still carries nearly all of its fuel, over 100 tons, making it about 40 tons above the safe landing weight. Normally, pilots would reduce weight by transferring or releasing fuel, but those systems are damaged. There is no easy solution. They will have to land the aircraft as it is, and that changes everything. Because turning the aircraft around was one thing, landing it safely is an entirely different challenge, and the calculations that follow would push every pilot in that cockpit to the very edge of their ability. What happened next shocked even experienced pilots. As the aircraft approaches Singapore, the crew begins calculating landing performance. Check Captain Dave Evans inputs the aircraft's condition into the onboard system, but the computer cannot produce a result. The damage is too complex. The situation falls outside what the system is designed to handle. So the crew reassesses. They confirm the runway is dry, not wet, and input the revised data. This time, the system gives an answer, a narrow one. The aircraft will stop with just 139 meters of runway remaining on a 4-kilometer strip. That is an incredibly tight margin. Then, another problem appears. First Officer Matt Hicks is given an approach speed of 146 knots, but something does not feel right. It is too low. At that speed, the aircraft risks losing lift before touchdown. He questions it, cross-checks it, and confirms the correct speed, 166 knots, a difference that could have changed everything. Think about that for a moment. One number, one correction, and the outcome could have been completely different. Before committing to landing, de Crespigny performs a control test. He needs to know exactly how the aircraft will respond. The result is sobering. Roll control is reduced by 65%. There will be no second attempt, no last-minute correction. This is a one-shot landing. Then comes another complication. The landing gear cannot deploy normally. Hydraulics are offline. So the crew activates the emergency gravity system, allowing the gear to fall into place under its own weight. It takes 2 full minutes to lock. Finally, at 11:45 a.m., nearly 2 hours after the initial failure, the aircraft begins its descent. It touches down at high speed. 4 tires fail under the pressure. The aircraft slows slowly and comes to a stop, with about 150 meters of runway remaining. But even on the ground, the situation is not over. one engine refuses to shut down. Its control systems have been damaged. Fire crews attempt to suppress it, but the engine continues running. It takes nearly an hour and extensive foam application before it finally stops. Now comes the final decision: evacuate immediately or keep passengers on board. Fuel is present, brakes are hot. The environment outside is uncertain. Dave Evans, senior Czech captain, once said, "We've got a situation where there is fuel, hot brakes, and an engine that we can't shut down." And really the safest place was on board the aircraft until such time as things changed. So the crew waits, and eventually, passengers are calmly escorted off the aircraft. All 469 people on board are safe. But the investigation was only just beginning, and the answer hidden inside that engine would send shockwaves through the entire aviation industry. Remember the debris that fell over Batam Island? Among those pieces was something critical: a turbine disc, a massive component made from nickel alloy, designed to withstand extreme conditions, and yet it had failed. When investigators examined it, they found something unusual. The disc had expanded beyond its design limits, meaning it had been spinning at an incredibly high speed before separating. But why? The answer lies inside the engine itself. Evidence shows there had been an internal oil fire, reaching temperatures above 1,000 degrees Celsius. This heat damaged the internal shaft, which allowed the turbine to accelerate uncontrollably until it could no longer hold together. But the root cause goes even deeper. Investigators traced the issue to a small component, a stub pipe. This pipe was responsible for supplying oil inside the engine, and it had fractured. On closer inspection, one side of the pipe was just 0.35 millimeters thick, about the thickness of 2 sheets of paper. The reason? A subtle misalignment during manufacturing, which caused excessive material to be removed. A tiny imperfection with massive consequences. Now, this is based on publicly available information and is presented here purely for educational awareness. The industry response was immediate. Airlines grounded affected aircraft. Inspections were expanded. Alan Joyce, CEO of Qantas, once said, "We do take our safety reputation and our safety standards unbelievably seriously. And we're not going to take any risks with passenger safety." Rolls-Royce implemented major changes to its quality systems. And the aircraft itself, after extensive repairs, eventually returned to service. The real impact went far beyond one flight. In the end, not a single one of the 469 people on board was seriously injured. Even on the ground, where debris had fallen, no one was harmed. In a situation involving more than 80 system failures, a damaged wing, and a high-risk landing, the outcome was as close to perfect as aviation can achieve. So what made the difference? Investigators point to one key factor: the crew. 5 pilots working together, cross-checking each other, staying calm, making decisions step by step, and perhaps most importantly, communicating openly. This incident reshaped how the industry looks at system failures, manufacturing precision, and cockpit teamwork. But it also highlighted something deeper. In an age of advanced automation, it was human judgment that made the difference. Captain Richard de Crespigny once said, "It's not about me as a pilot in command of QF32. It's about aviation that for the last 110 years has shared knowledge and experience to make flying safer for the traveling public. And that idea is worth carrying with you. Because sometimes, the most advanced systems in the world still depend on something very human." If this video made you see aviation and the world a little differently, consider subscribing. There is always more beneath the surface.